everyone, and welcome back to my tutorial campaign in Realistic Progression 0, the campaign mod for the Realism Overhaul suite of realism mods in Kerbal Space Program. In the last episode, we managed to send our Labrador command service module out to the moon. We didn't quite manage to recover it, though, due to coming in retrograde at 11.3 or more kilometers per second, and just barely not making it. We then sent a backup mission. We redid Labrador 6 as an uncrewed mission, and Labrador 6 is currently on its way out to the moon. Now, due to a bug in KSP 1.1.3, which I believe I have fixed for 1.2, I can't directly select Labrador 6, so instead we're going to select this other satellite first, and then we're going to select Labrador 6. Oh dang, I forgot to unlock nodes and get more KCT upgrades. But admittedly, where's Labrador 6? Admittedly, it's not a big deal because at this point, one upgrade it's going to give us one. It's going to give us like one, I don't know, 800th of our existing level of upgrades or something like that. No, 1/400th maybe. So it doesn't make a great deal of difference whether we do it now or in a week and a half, which is about how long this mission will take. Alright, and we have 2 crewed missions queued up. So let's go ahead and hit the warp button. Let's look at what's going on with our lunar, with our periselene. It claims 101 kilometers. Okay, well, that's acceptable to me. So let's go ahead and warp it on up. We're aligned sufficiently well that we don't have to worry about solar power. So out we go. We will only take 3 days to get to the moon. This is a fairly fast trajectory. But I'm not going to keep it too the warp too high just because there were some issues with solar panels. So, all right, now it's slowed down a bit much. Let's warp it on up. Bring that back up and go through the... All right, so now we need to create a node to capture at the moon. Now, we want a fairly circular orbit, but we don't want to spend too much on it because we want to have plenty of delta V for the return. I believe that our capsule is slightly under delta V'd given the mission requirements, so we need to be a bit careful. Also, we don't want, because the issue that we'll run into is this. So watch what happens when we do this. Let's add a circularization node at periapsis, and it costs 936 meters per second. Now, that does not leave us a whole lot for return. That leaves us 1802 minus 937, let's call it, is 865. That leaves us 865 to return. That's not counting any steering losses we'll incur during this burn, given that it will be a 6-minute burn. So that's worrying. We don't have a lot of margin on the spacecraft. Then again, we are launching with the launch vehicle we have that itself does not have a ton of margin. once we do our upgrades, we'll have oodles of margin. And we'll be able to put much more delta V into this. And we will also probably consider switching to 2 of these engines because the burn time is getting a bit long, and also because it would be nice to have engine roll control rather than RCS roll control. But that is neither here nor there, so let us go ahead and circularize at the moon. It's in 12 hours. That's about 10 minutes before the node. So we're right about to lose contact direct, but happily on many prior missions we've put a bunch of lunar communication satellites around the orbit of the moon, and they can help bounce the signal for us, which is very nice. So yes, I believe that I'm going to want to do this manually. Okay, so this, we're a bit to the right, to the left, so we'll go to the right. Now, this mission so far is closely mimicking Apollo 8. I mean, other than the fact that our launch vehicle was about 1/3 the size of Saturn V. And our command and service module is less than half the mass of the Apollo CSM. We're doing it on the cheap. We're definitely doing it on the cheap. All right, so we're nearing that alignment. And in fact, I'm tempted to minimize our steering losses a bit due to the concerns I have about delta V. And to do that, we will, burn much closer to directly retrograde. And I think we want to start burning about T-minus 3 minutes before the node. Maybe even 3:30. We're currently at 160 kilometers. And, so that's not going to be a great deal of steering losses. So we'll let MechJeb handle this. Okay. And the burn has begun. It's going to be a long time. Looks like I ignited more or less at the right time. Now, what's also interesting is that there seems to be, with this craft, a MechJeb issue that Agathon experienced a while ago, which is that MechJeb will immediately light off the engine when we click Execute Node rather than waiting for the maneuver. And I'm really not sure why that is. I have never experienced that myself before. But it is exactly what Agathon experienced quite often. And it's also, it may be why it started. I think it burned about 10 seconds too early in that case. So I'll know that I'll have to manually burn the ejection node. we can turn off the RCS and let the gimbal do it all. That will save us a tiny bit of delta V. We've captured at the moon. Well, our eccentricity went below 1, but we're still exiting the SOI. All right, now we've captured at the moon. It's the little spacecraft that could. Looking very much like an old school version of the Orion CEV. We're still a minute shy of the node, and we've burned almost half of our delta V that we're required to burn. That gauge looks like we've burned half, and yet that was not half the delta V. That's worrying. That is vaguely worrying. We'll see how much delta V we actually end up with maintaining. Okay. .350 meters per second left. That leaves us with about 860 if everything works as it should. Yeah, we definitely started burning early, it looks like. Well, that's okay. I'm going to abort the node execution and redo it. Now that we're lined up again, because things were going slightly wrong. Now, one thing we can do to save delta V is we could go ahead and not fully circularize, because let's see, where are we actually going to want to eject from anyway? We're going to want to eject from here. So actually, no, we probably are going to want to fully circularize, because we don't want to be going slower over here when we perform our ejection burn. All right, looks like our initial estimate is about right. We'll have about 858 meters per second left. It does mean that in the future we'll probably want to provide slightly more, but this will do. Okay, that is a nearly perfectly circular orbit around the moon. We have an orbital period just shy of 2 hours. Now, let's go ahead and look at what it would cost Return from a moon. Create node. Ah, that's where the node is. Okay, so we might not have had to fully circularize. Now the downside of doing that maneuver, and note that it's only 780, so we have a whole 80 meters per second spare. Haha, we're rich. The downside of simply accepting that maneuver. All right, I'm focused on the Earth so we can see stuff better. Let's look at, does it even have an Earth perigee? No. There, now it does. The downside of that is, look at that. That's 5 days. So 5 days and 1.5 hours. No, 5 days and 1 hour of transit time back to the Earth. So that's right, so we're going to want to eject rather more. So let's go ahead. This is at minus 1.5. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Now we're going to have to play with the time of our maneuver. All right, and let's look at, nope, wrong way. That's now in 10, all right, that's the wrong way. Let's go the other way. Yes, that is a more appropriate ejection. Okay, so basically what we've done is we've taken the lowest delta V ejection, we've added more delta V up to basically our limit, and now we're going to play around with the time we're performing the ejection maneuver to establish our desired Earth perigee. I'm also going to go ahead and give us a little bit more margin here because I want enough fine-tuning margin. Because see, look at that. No, wrong way. If we're doing things on a second-by-second basis, we're definitely going to want to have enough. And the point nope, even finer. That's acceptable to me. All right, so that will be our ejection burn. That is 1 hour and 47 minutes. I'm not going to bother continuing to circle the moon because, you know, this is just a test verification. We already know how everything is going to work. We don't have to orbit the moon for a few days. So that cut our travel time from over 5 days to 3.5 days. That's fairly reasonable. I believe that we were about 3.5 days on the way out. No, we had a really fast transfer out. That's why it cost so much to circularize. It took us less than 3 days from launch to circularized at the moon. All right, so we know that that burn is going to be just barely short, which means we're going to want to start burning about 2 minutes ahead of the node if we want things properly balanced. So let's line up with the node, and we will then perform the ejection. Okay, we are now aligned with our ejection vector. Let's see whether MechJeb... Nope, MechJeb is doing its thing. So we can't use MechJeb to execute the maneuver. That's really quite annoying. So we'll just have to do it manually. Yeah, I have no idea why it's doing that. Sorry, I was just checking if maybe there was some known issue with MechJeb or something I could do about MechJeb, but no. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and warp manually to the node. I believe we'll be getting enough solar power that we don't have to worry about running out of electric charge on our way to the node. All right, 57, 40, 30, 20, 10, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. 2 minutes. All right. Well, bye-bye, Moon. It was nice knowing you. Homeward bound we go. All right, and we'll let MechJeb do it now that we know we're at the right time before it. Give or take like 5 seconds. Okay, to conserve delta V, we're turning our RCS off. That is because our RCS has a different mixture ratio than the engine. So if we burn any RCS, we'll have some remaining unburnt aerosine in that tank. Which we can, if we really get desperate, we can correct by transferring some of the command module's NTO back, and then etc. But we don't have to worry about it. Looking like we're maintaining our 20 meters per second reserve delta V. You know, I'm doing these lunar missions and I'm sort of tempted to think in feet per second, even though it's worth noting that all the Apollo guidance computers internally worked in metric. They just converted feet per second for display. But still, it's just, you know, you kind of want to. You just kind of want to. Alright, it's looking like we more or less correctly nailed the timing of this. Yeah, it's sort of annoying that both the capture and the injection burns are on the night side of the moon, but we'll take it. So I'm left in map view focusing on the Earth because I want to carefully fine-tune that Earth perigee once we get close to done with this burn. Because we don't want to mess up. We really don't want to screw up. Alright, so it looks like we about nailed the timing of this maneuver. That's fine. It was nice because we were burning almost all our remaining delta V, so we had this burn time as a way to know how long the burn would actually take. The first thing, that was just me basically estimating that it would be about 6 minutes of burn based on the starting and ending thrust-to-weight ratio. Because, of course, you know, delta V is proportional to your thrust-to-weight ratio at any given instance. So early on, when that's lower, you're producing less delta V, less acceleration, obviously, so less delta V per second. So the first 900, whatever, was 6 minutes, and the second 900 is only 4 minutes. All right, we're getting close to the end. Only 100 meters per second left to burn. And there's Earth. Kind of wish Scanner would just keep the thing loaded, but whatever. "30 meters per second remaining. In comes our new orbit line. And whoops, so we underburned slightly. Let's correct that. Whoa, that was bad. Let's see what that did to things. Probably nothing good. That's for darn sure. Oh, no, it actually got quite close. So we'll correct the rest on RCS. 68, I think we want about 30. .25, I'll accept that. All right, so off we go, away from the moon. Quite quickly. That's in 3 days and 9 hours. 3 days, 9 hours, and 30 minutes. Okay, so this is not quite as fast a return as I might have liked, but that's because our transit out was super fast, so we used up our delta V budget on circularizing. So we're going to go ahead and warp. There we are. Now we're in sunlight. Not the most optimal of sunlighty orientations, but I think that's still enough to keep us charged. Electric charge is definitely recharging. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and escape the moon. And yay, our periapsis stayed correct. All right. So we're going to go ahead and now the one thing that I didn't do, which I should have done. I was going to talk about it actually, and then I totally forgot to do it. We know where we're going to end up on the Earth. We want to end up in an ocean, but we know this is in 2 days and 11 hours approximately. So that means 1 day, 2 day, and then a half, and that's going to be in the Atlantic, I believe. Let's warp ahead until this is in 1 day. 2 days, I mean. 2 days even. So we can see exactly, well, give or take, where we'll land. All right, so that looks like we're going to land. Nope, we're actually interesting. That means I got my calculations slightly wrong. So it looks like we're still going to land in the Pacific. It's just the Pacific is really darn big, and that's why I got things wrong. All right, so it looks like we will land in the Pacific, which is decent. As long as we don't land on land, I'll be happy. So I think I want to basically just accelerate time and warp to about here. And then we can assess. So down we come, faster and faster. Orbital velocity now 1,500 meters per second. 18, 19, 20. 3,000, 4,000, 5, 6, 7, 9,000. All right. So, yep. Our estimate of where we're landing was correct. Now, what we do if for some reason we were actually landing over land, let me pause it for a second. I can talk about this before. Well, yeah, because we're low enough that I need the time. We could move our departure burn forwards a couple hours, a period, one orbit of the moon, and that would mean that the Earth will have rotated 2 hours. At our arrival, holding our arrival time as fixed from the time we burn. So that's how you figure out where you're actually going to land. This time we got lucky. This time we definitely got lucky. Very lucky indeed, because we've got all this open ocean in front of us. So we want to warp down a bit more. To something like about here. And so let's orient for reentry. Okay, passing retrograde. And let's do our roll maneuver. Get lined up really nicely. Look at that nice sunny day. All right. We're using our remaining few meters per second of service module delta V to perform this reorientation to leave maximum propellant in the command module such that we can control our reentry. Now this may get a little bit bumpy, but 33 kilometers means that we should be just about, whoop, rolled the wrong way, means that we should be okay. It won't go past 7 Gs or so, I don't think. Now, if memory serves, the minimal return orbital speed is about 10,300 surface, assuming you're in a fairly equatorial orbit. So any excess delta V we burned off MechJeb's optimal return maneuver, that basically translates directly into increased entry speed. Okay, let's align like that and ride this down a bit. Okay, man, those look sort of like fan blades. Okay. Once we get down to about 180 kilometers, I'll decouple the service module. All right, there we are, 180 kilometers. Now we're descending fairly quickly. So we're going to go ahead and jettison the service module, which has served us well. Goodbye. Now, we need to turn descent mode on, activate these, stage the parachute. I pause it such that I can set this up correctly. We're leaving pitch off because, aerodynamics will keep us stabilized in pitch, but we're centering on roll and yaw. There we are. And I'm going to swap to free camera so the camera doesn't snap around a bunch. And there goes the service module. Boom-a-boom-a-boom. All right, we're entering fairly fast. 10,600 meters per second surface. But we should be okay. That's still 900 meters per second slower than our last entry. Is that right? No, that's 700 meters per second slower. And that means a lot at the high end. All right, standing ready on the roll. We're down almost to 60 kilometers. It's getting pretty hot. There goes the heat gauge. .300 meters per second sink rate, 250, 200, 100. All right, starting the roll. I did not notice peak G. What was peak G? Peak G was 6 Gs. So that's an Apollo level reentry. That's fine. All right. We've completed that roll. We'll roll again. We're changing our inclination a fair bit. Whoops. Let's... Come on. Roll back up. There we are. We went up to 6.5 Gs before I managed to roll out again, which was not awesome. But there's nobody on board, so it's okay. How's our ablator? Still at 147. And we're at well less than orbital speed. So far from blowing up this time, we're going to end with a lot of ablator left. Okay, so for those of you who may not remember on prior episodes where we've done that roll when we were testing this capsule, this is flying a lifting reentry. You'll notice that that vertical speed was going up for a while, is positive. That's because, and we have this angle of attack here. So we're actually generating a fair amount of lift. Our lift to drag ratio is probably something like about 0.4, I think. Let's find out. LD, 0.329, although we are slower than we were. And I don't know. Anyway, that's a reasonable hypersonic lift to drag ratio. So when we're rolled this way, with the offset center of mass, that's what descent mode does. Aerodynamics forces us to maintain this angle of attack. That provides a lot of lift. Now, I rolled because the sink rate was passing 0, and we were starting to climb. And I really didn't want to climb while we were still doing, 7 kilometers per second. That would have put our apogee well outside the atmosphere, and we would have done a very large skip. So yeah, so we roll to have the lift force actually push us down and increase our descent rate. Notice even on this skip, we're getting up to 75 kilometers. And that, yeah, we still have tons of ablator left. All right, that was all right, that was fine. So the issue just last time was that we came in retrograde, which gave us another almost 800 meters per second of velocity from coming in retrograde, and that's why things were so horrible. So down we go. Nice and gentle now. Okay, so now we're doing our second entry, although we're already going quite slowly, all things considered. And how are we doing? Okay, we're coming in literally just off the western coast of South America. What is that? Is that Chile? Up there? Okay. Yeah, look at how much ablator we have left. That's fine. Okay, so we've just about got done with the flames. We've more or less leveled out. Look at how low that sink rate is. And we'll come on down. Okay, so this was, compared to last time, this mission went quite well. Can we even see? Yeah, we can see the coast in the distance. Look at that. And also look at how high the Andes are. dropping below Mach 4 and 35 kilometers. And yeah, that's a shockingly large quantity of ablator lift. We did have fairly high G's, but what max was 7? Max was 6.5. Okay. So that's not bad at all. Mach 2, down at 27,000 meters. What is that? I think we're down about 90,000 feet, give or take. Okay, so Mekjev is trying to, well, let's just use up the remainder of the RCS propellant. I could just open the dump interface, but meh, this is fine. Okay, we are well subsonic, so let's go ahead and turn descent mode off. Stabilize. Okay. Use up the remaining NTO and MMH. Okay, there we are. And right, let's speed up time until we get drogue deployment. There we go. And mosey on down. And drogue full deployment. So this will be a while until we splash down, so let's speed up time one more time. Passing 1 kilometer. Descending at 5 meters per second, nice gentle descent rate. $350, $300, $250, $200, $150, 150 back to 1x warp. Ugh, that line on the horizon is a little annoying. It's clipping. Clip planes. All right, there we are. We successfully returned. Wow, that's fairly splooshy. Anyway, we'll recover. We successfully recovered something from orbit of the moon. Possibly we'll even get a little science from it. Yep, 2 science points. 2 whole whopping science points. And less than 10k, but that's okay. Whoops. And yeah, I don't know what else we can buy here. We have a lot of science, but I don't know what else we can buy. I think I already bought those. Let's find out. This. Yeah, we already bought those. And everything else requires an R&D center upgrade, so we can't get it. I mean, I guess we could just get more solids, couldn't we? Yeah, we can get Castor 2 in the UI 1205, but meh, don't really have much use for it. Oh, but I wanted the Star 37, although I have to place and price it, I guess. So yeah, that worked. Advanced stage combustion, ready in 2 days. Now here's the interesting question. Given our record with these things, dare we just go ahead and launch with the launch vehicle we got, or do we try to uprate to more reliable engines? I am not immediately sure what the correct answer to that is. We also wanted to consider upping the delta V just so the margins weren't quite so tight. And I think we might as well go ahead and do that now. So we know we have excess launch vehicle capacity. So let's undo the 1810. What if we go up to here? That's another 100 meters per second, and yet we still have plenty of launch vehicle capacity. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and accept that. The other question before us, obviously, is whether to change up those RL10s to the next model. Let's look. Let's see what a difference this makes. Huh, I don't think I ever unlocked those, but whatever. A33. So let's, right now, whoops, I guess I have to be in regular mode first. Interesting, our flight data is slightly over maximum. That's okay. Also, odd that current reliability and maximum reliability aren't the same thing, but whatever. Let's get this from R&D. "39 minutes MTBF. 131.23 MTB. All right, let's see what happens if we upgrade to these. The burn time increases as expected. The delta V goes through the roof. And current reliability is almost 3 times as reliable as the other engines already. I think it is worth swapping to those. I definitely think it is worth swapping to them because they're just so much more reliable. And because given that we're paranoid about first or second stage engine failures, having that extra cushion of delta V is not a bad thing. So let's go ahead and save those edits. So first, let me just check what is the utilization of this thing now. It's 88. Save edits, and we'll do the same to the other one. Oh, this was the one I just edited, isn't it? Well, isn't that wonderful? Yep, that's the one I just edited. Was there anything else that we wanted to do while we have this set up? Otherwise, I am basically comfortable with everything. Let's see what this does to the life support. All right, so that gave us a fair amount extra life support. Right. Was there anything else we needed to deal with? I mean, I think that the capsule and everything worked fine. So cancel these edits. Now let's edit the correct one. It's also seriously tempting to wait 2 days and swap to NK33s. But we don't need the excess capacity yet. All right, so $88, and then these things go to A33. All right. Let's check we are properly above ground. That's good. All right. Now, we do have advanced stage combustion tech coming up in all of 2 days. And we have these things. They will take a fair amount of time to build. But we will need the next launch vehicle queued up. So I think what we might as well do, because we need to start looking ahead towards lunar landings and space stations. What is the tech path actually? Short-term habitation is the next thing, and that's only 51 days away. All right, once that unlocks, then we'll be able to do the space station milestone. And the question is, we really don't need more than the existing launch vehicle for space station building. We almost don't need more than our existing launch vehicle for landing on the moon. Because all we need is about 16 tons TLI. And we can almost get that with what we have. I think upgrading that first stage with NK33s and stretching it a bit might be enough, except for the fact that doing that would require a new launch pad. If we just swap out without stretching it, then we might stay under 800, but we'd have to work fairly hard to get 16 tons TLI out of 800 tons all up launch vehicle. Take a fair amount more hydroloxing. We need full hydrolox second stage, although we are considering that obviously for the true second generation of that launch vehicle. Right, so that's a ways away, that's a ways away. I think that we need to start saving up for the launch pad and saving up for upgrading R&D, which is supremely expensive. And there isn't anything we can do right now because our VAB is tied up. So yeah, I think it's best if I call this episode to an end. We finally completed a full all-up test mission with flying colors. We have made that change to our crewed capsules to put in a little extra delta V so that we don't have to worry so much about being careful, and so we can do some fairly fast outwards and inwards transfers so that the crew don't have to wait very long going to and from the moon, giving us more time at the moon. Although we do have two weeks worth of supplies, so it's not like that's going to be a problem. So yeah, with that all set, thank you everyone for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the episode. I hope that it was useful, that you learned something from it, and I hope to see you again next time. Thanks, and bye-bye.